Shout out to G-Man Boxing. Big up Ty, will you gate crash Michelle Hall Phelps' IB for party? It's tempting.
Alright people, review of the week time. Coming a bit late today, just purely because I wanted to wait until last night's fights were out of the way, because I didn't want to do review of the week when there was still stuff left to talk about, so we're doing it a bit late tonight. I have to start with the fight everyone was talking about, with the event that everyone wants to know about. So this past Friday, Dave Allen made his comeback. I'm just kidding. No, I will touch on that now later on in this video. But yes, obviously I'll talk about Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley. I hadn't really talked much about this. I look back at it, and look, I'll just give it a little synopsis, because I didn't really care much for this fight. But in the weeks kind of coming up to it, it was entertaining, the kind of build up. But I like the trash talk, and I like just being entertained. You know, I like being entertained. The fight wasn't too entertaining, but it was the first time we've ever seen Jake Paul really in there with someone who can fight a bit. Tyron Woodley's not known as a striker in UFC or MMA. Nevertheless, he was able to buzz Jake Paul a bit. Jake Paul won via split decision. This to me was like seeing a novice amateur in the gym who has been sparring other novices who can't really fight and they're getting the better of it, go in there with a top amateur, or heaven forbid, a semi-decent pro. It's a different game. This is when boxing becomes real, and I think that Jake Paul's kind of realised it now, that this ain't really a game. You know, you can fight a Ben Askren who looked like, you know, your 50-year-old dad. You can fight a former basketball player. When you're fighting someone who can actually fight a bit, it's very different. He said he's going to take a break. Some of the names he's called out have been Nate Diaz, Jorge Masvidal. Again, both guys are, yes, former fighters in the octagon, but they're not known as strikers. You know, certainly not. So for them, it's kind of like, you know, okay, we get a payday. You're fighting someone whose background is more wrestling as opposed to striking. In terms of, you know, names, I mean, Jesus, they're going to want to keep him away from, because he could get seriously hurt. You know, it is a bit of fun with Jake Paul, but imagine, what weight is he at? Cruiserweight. Could you imagine just even a journeyman level cruiserweight who has a bit of pop? You know, look at someone like Bob Ajasafi. You know, he could fight a cruiserweight. I think he has in the past. Imagine him against Ben Askren. Bob Ajasafi's a puncher. Don't take his record might not look that way, but he is a puncher. Ask Tony Bellew, ask Hosea Burton. He could definitely bang. Imagine him against, you know, Jake Paul. Just, they wouldn't do it obviously, but just could you imagine that from a point of view of someone who's not really a boxer, someone who is and can punch a bit? That's really going to end badly for Jake Paul. He obviously fought on the same card as Tommy Fury. Tommy Fury was on that card as well. He won his fight 4-round points decision. If they did do that fight, they would make an absolute killing between the Love Island fans from Tommy Fury, his Mrs. Molly May, which is a very... Molly May, what a name. And then you have the following of Jake Paul. That would do good numbers. You'd have John Fury bringing it along. I think it'd be funny to see Jake Paul troll John Fury. It would be comical. That would really scare Jake Paul. You know, never mind, you know, sparring or anything like that. John Fury, when you piss him off, he ain't joking. That man ain't joking. Make no mistake about it. I remember when remember in Belfast when Deontay Wilder crashed the weigh-in, and Deontay Wilder kind of thought this was all fun and games, and you could tell everyone else kind of thought that except John Fury. He was like, no, I'll have a straightener with you. Now John Fury wouldn't have won that in my opinion, but he was willing to go and, you know, take on Deontay Wilder then and there. That'd be funny. So that was kind of that card. Obviously Daniel Dubois made his US debut on that card. He wasn't there with much. I watched the fight. The sheer power and brute force of Dubois does tell. Dubois is a very big puncher. You know, we look at the Joe Joyce performance. Joe Joyce is a juggernaut, and even then, Joe Joyce fought that a bit more cautiously than he normally does. You know, he obviously knew Daniel Dubois has serious punch power, which he definitely does. He called out Trevor Bryan, who I believe, now, I could be wrong about this, but I know the WBA, and I'll talk about this now in a sec, have removed all interim champions, but I believe, you can cut me on this if you think I'm wrong, I think I'm right on this though, but they still have kept the regular champions, which again, I don't really understand the concept of the regular champion. AO probably sanction fees, but look, He's called out regular champion Trevor Bryan. Now, I personally would pick Daniel Dubois to beat Trevor Bryan personally, depending on where they have that fight. It wouldn't really matter, US, UK, either or. Bryan, I believe, is with Don King. Frank Warren and Don King used to do a lot of business together back in the 90s. So there's a kind of, could they rebond or something like that? I don't think they were ever the closest, to be fair. I know they worked together very close, but I don't think they were ever best buds. So Dubois versus Bryan, I watch it. It's a way to sell a world title. And then, of course, if AJ Fury happens, or if there's any issues with mandatories with AJ, that title could get vacant, and then obviously they would probably elevate the winner to full champion. So it could be a way for Frank Warren to get Dubois into a world title picture, or even get him a world title without having to go down the route of fighting a Hrgovic, a Dylan White. Just not to say that he wouldn't have a chance against some of them. He might in a year or two, but to avoid any of that, just get him the title the easiest way you can, and hopefully someone vacates and you get elevated. Maybe that's the route they're going. I don't know. In terms of Saturday night's card, I only covered one fight that was on that card, which was Anthony Yarde versus The Puddin'. Now, I'll probably touch on that more in a separate video, probably tomorrow at some stage. That was really disappointing. I don't want to go in too in-depth in it, because I'll have a chat about it in a separate video and talk about why I feel that is, he may as well have done nothing at all, realistically. That guy, that was the guy Anthony Yarde was fighting, not him himself, but that was the type of opponent that he was fighting 3-4 years ago, when people were saying he'd no amateur background, give him the benefit of the doubt, he can have a couple of them fights. Now, at 30 years old, having fought for a world title, having fought at British level, and albeit lost, but very competitive, he really shouldn't be fighting these level of opponents. Lyndon Arthur's fought, was it a kind of European, kind of fringe European level last fight, and yeah, he had some rough moments in it, but it stood him in good stead. It was a real fight, and it will stand him in good stead for the Yarde rematch. This was kind of like, go in, get a knockout, and come home. That's it. You may as well have done nothing at all. You literally could have put him over to Hungary or Spain, like he did before, had a fight over there, got a win, and came back. That's literally what it was like. It won't do anything, in my opinion. Yeah, it'd be good to get in front of fans. That might help, but other than that, it won't do anything. In terms of the rest of the card, Sam Maxwell fought Akeem Ennis-Brown. Now, I wasn't scoring that fight. I watched it, but I wasn't scoring it. But in my opinion, the winner of the fight, in my eyes, was Akeem Ennis-Brown. He did more of what he wanted. Akeem Ennis-Brown is unbelievably awkward. I'd say he is a nightmare to fight, because the angles, the movement, he seems so awkward to fight. It's not even funny. And for me, he outworked Sam Maxwell, and it was his awkwardness that won him the fight. Now, the judges, although it was close, they felt Sam Maxwell did more of what he wanted. I personally didn't feel that way. I felt that Akeem Ennis-Brown did enough to nick it. Competitive fight, wasn't a robbery, but definitely, in my opinion, Akeem Ennis-Brown did more of what he wanted. So if they run that back, I don't really know what more either man could do, to be honest. I would say maybe Akeem Ennis-Brown needs to really stamp his authority, maybe sit down the shots more. He's only got one stoppage in his 16 fights, so he's obviously not really sitting on his shots. He might have a bit more pop than his record suggests. I do believe that, but he's such an awkward operator. He really is. I just watched him. I was like, straight away, oh, this guy is awkward as hell. Nathan Heaney was on that card, and 32 years old, so he's no spring chicken, but he definitely brings a lot of energy. That stadium seemed to kind of empty. He was the co-feature. That stadium seemed to kind of empty after he finished. He's got a good entrance, got a good ring walk, brings a lot of fans. I think he's from Stoke. So, I enjoy watching him, and he's starting to get these guys out of there, starting to find a bit of pop. So, Nathan Heaney, I'll keep my eye on him. The only downside is he's 32. Needs to get a move on. Main event was Anthony Kakachi versus Leon Woodstock. Now, Leon Woodstock is a fighter I like. I always liked his style. I like the way he's very game. But at domestic level, he's always come short. He came short against Archie Sharp. He came short against Zelfa Barrett. And now he's come short against Anthony Kakachi. This fight's been rescheduled on and off and on and off and on and off. Both guys were out of the ring for a long time, so it was kind of even Stevens in that regards. But Kakachi dropped Leon Woodstock, and he won pretty much the majority of all the rounds. So well done to Anthony Kakachi. Leon Woodstock, it's his third loss. He's really never been able to crack domestic level. I like Leon Woodstock. He seems a cool guy. His style is fun to watch, but I think he needs to, when you box him, he's like a fish out of water when someone boxes him. He just doesn't seem to be able to cut the ring off effectively, and he's not able to get his head moving. Like, he was getting hit loads against Kakachi, way too much for my liking. So they'll definitely need to work on that. I think that there is a good fighter left in Leon Woodstock still. He needs a lot of work. He really, truly does. You know, the guys on the domestic level are okay, but like Zelfa Barrett is alright. You know, Archie Sharp, I think, has regressed an awful lot. Kakachi will need to see how he gets on. You know, he's still kind of finding his feet, but I think there's a good fighter in Leon Woodstock. Maybe not anymore after, you know, everything. You know, he's had a couple of losses. That was a tough fight on Saturday, but I think he needs to address a lot of things. Friday's card, look, I'll give him his 5 minutes. Dave Allen made his comeback. I don't know. He won in the second round. Again, I have no personal vendetta against the guy, but for someone who said that he's never been given opportunities, when Eddie Hearn has given him opportunity after opportunity after opportunity, and he's always came in out of shape and went life and death with Journeyman, someone like that, you know, you just gotta kind of, whatever they say, you just kind of put it in the back of your head. In terms of Dave Allen coming back, I don't know the reason why. And me personally, I'd rather he didn't. And it's not me saying, oh, you know, you're saying that you don't like him. No, I'm not saying that because I don't like him. I'm saying that because I worry about his health. Dave Allen has taken shellackings in the ring. Serious beatings. You know, from Luis Ortiz. Tony Yoka was the worst. People want to say David Price. I think Tony Yoka, the beating he got there was the worst, personally. Because Tony Yoka beat him black and blue for 10 rounds and then finally stepped on the gas and got him out of there. I mean, he really took a Hail Mary beating in there against Tony Yoka. And then saying that, like, it's not like he's had just one bad beating. The Ortiz was bad. That was 8 rounds. Dave Price, he made Dave Price look like Larry Holmes in there. Really. He's taken, and there's been other fights as well. Even fights he's won, like Nick Webb. He took a lot of shots before, you know, getting rid of Nick Webb. That Bragamonte fight was, I think Eddie Hearn at the time summed it up best. Wonderfully terrible, in a sense of this shouldn't be so competitive, but it is, and it's fun to watch, and it was fun to watch. But when you're seeing someone who's 29 years old take this kind of abuse, and he's already sounding a bit compared to how we used to a couple of years back, you just think to yourself, why? And why would you, like, you name him guys like Alan Babbage and stuff like that, them guys could do him serious damage. And the problem I think with Babbage, if you fought Alan Babbage, that could be worse than him fighting someone like, God forbid, Arslanbek Makhmedov. I'll tell you why. Someone like Makhmedov or Hrgovic or Dubois, they have the punching power to get Dave Allen out of there. They have the punching power to stop him at this stage. With Alan Babbage, I don't think he does, but he's fresher, he's got superior work rate, and I think that he'll have no trouble landing on Dave Allen, but I don't think he'll have the power to deter Dave Allen, which is a bad thing for Dave Allen, because it means that we're probably going to see him take shot after shot after shot after shot after shot, and they're the fights that the one punch knockouts aren't ideal, but they're not as bad as taking a sustained beating, and that's what I see happening if he goes in there with someone like Babbage. It's going to be a sustained, if it's a 10 rounder, sustained 10 rounds, bang 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 bang, and I don't want to see that personally. So I hope that he gets a couple of fights, gets it out of his system, and then decides, you know what, quit while you're ahead, and can leave the game with somewhat of faculty. Because I can't imagine it's all there, because he's definitely sounding a bit, not full-blown punchy, but definitely not on the good side. So that's kind of the fights that happened in the week. In terms of the boxing news, as I've already covered, Chris Eubank Jr. is talking about, well, it's likely that he'll make his return to the ring. Which, you know, as I said, like, I would give, people have been saying, like, look, it's a bad opponent, this, that, and the other. It's not great, but given the fact he's been inactive and given the fact that his brother tragically passed away, I think we can afford him an easy touch. You know, I think we can. You know, it's got to be horrific putting that at the back of your mind. The ordeal itself has got to be horrific, because I don't have any brothers or sisters, so I don't know what it's like, but I can imagine it must be horrific to have to go through that ordeal and then get yourself mentally psyched for a fight. If I was in this team, I'd be saying, take an easy fight. Just get in, get it out of the way, and then let's regroup. Take an easy fight just to get back in there. I don't begrudge him personally. It's just me. I just don't begrudge him. Manny Pacquiao saying that, you know, I think I already talked about that last week, but Manny Pacquiao saying his legs, you know, weren't fully right, and that, Yordenis Ugas, he feels he should have won. He wants a rematch. He wasn't the best he ever fought. Father Time is undefeated, and Manny Pacquiao lost to Father Time as well as Yordenis Ugas in there. And Father Time, if Manny Pacquiao fights again and he fights Yordenis Ugas again, in my opinion, will go 2-0 against Manny Pacquiao as well as Yordenis Ugas. So I'll keep that one short and sweet. The IBF, the IBF and Teofimo Lopez. I'm only going to touch on this very quickly. I don't want to upset any algorithms on here when you talk about this. And for the sake of this video, we're going to call it the postman's knock. Thanks for that hat, man. They've insisted that both guys need the postman's knock if they want to have their fight. Now, I think that is to do with the fact that it's in New York. And in New York, they really are going full-blown. I'm not even going to go there. But they are really going full-blown out there with the old postman's knock. Look, if I was managing Teofimo Lopez, I would say one of two. You have two choices. Either bin that title if you don't want to take it, because you shouldn't be forced to. No one should be, whether you are for it or against it, no one should be forced to take something they don't want to take. If you want it, knock yourself out. If you don't want it, that's fine. But under no circumstance am I for anyone saying you have to. No. So I would say either bin it or try and get it moved to a different state. You know, Texas, Florida, or South Dakota. 3 of those states have been very, very good. Very, very good states. States I'd love to visit. States I definitely love to visit. So that's the situation with Teofimo Lopez. We'll see how that goes, how that unfolds. Oscar De La Hoya has been talking about who Ryan Garcia is going to fight next. Now, whilst people have been saying that Devin Haney versus Jojo Diaz is next, Oscar is saying that Ryan Garcia is going to be fighting Jojo Diaz next. At the end of the day, Jojo Diaz at lightweight has not impressed me. I've picked against him in every fight he's had at lightweight. Every fight, because I just don't think he's a lightweight. He never impressed me at 126. Never impressed me at 130. And he really doesn't impress me at 135. So I think Jojo Diaz against Ryan Garcia, he may very well be the first guy to stop Jojo Diaz. And I think Jojo Diaz, originally when he turned pro, was a Golden Boy fighter, because he fought in a lot of Canelo's undercards. So maybe they'll get that. But at the end of the day, like Ryan Garcia, I like Ryan Garcia, I do. But in terms of the top guys, Devin Haney, I would pick Devin Haney to beat Ryan Garcia. I just think that Ryan Garcia defensively makes too many mistakes. Offensively, very good. But I think that Devin would box the ears off him, personally. The WBO have now... Well, they haven't actually ordered it. I actually tell a lie. They haven't ordered it. But Tszyu is now mandatory with Brian Castano. However, they've indicated they would likely approve the rematch with Charlo. Whether Charlo takes that rematch or not is another thing altogether, because I don't know if he is interested in fighting Castano again. I thought Castano won the fight personally against Charlo, so we'll wait and see how that unfolds. Tszyu is one of them fighters where I haven't covered him on this channel because his fights have been not at ideal times for me to cover, but I've been mega impressed with Tszyu. Mega impressed with him, and I think that he is very, very good. Extremely good fighter. Castano is excellent as well. So is Charlo. I mean, those two guys really are in a league of their own at 154 pounds, in my opinion anyway. Certainly you've got up-and-comers, but in terms of the top guys, it's those two, and it's those two by a country mile. By a country mile. Tank Davis has now vacated his super WBA featherweight title. Yeah, Gilberto Ramirez gave him a choice to keep one of the three. So obviously he's never... I think we all knew he was never going to go back down to super featherweight. So we're looking at lightweight versus 140. I reckon he's going to stick at lightweight. I think that's his best division. I think that's the division that suits him best. In terms of WBA, they've stripped all their interim champions. Now, I think this is a good move, and I think that the WBA, the interim title to me is just so silly. It's just absurd. They have a Go champion, they have an interim champion, they have a regular champion, and they have a super champion. You don't need the gold, you don't need the regular, you don't need the interim, you just need one. The interim titles have a place in boxing, they do. But not to be just doled out to everybody. As far as I'm concerned, if a fighter has an injury and it's not a severe one. We'll say it's something that would mean, let's say, a knee injury or something like that, or an ankle injury or something like that, where they have to miss 6 months of action in around that 6 months, then that's fine. Give an interim title. 2 guys fight for it. It's a glorified mandatory shot, and if the injury appears to be worse, the interim champion gets elevated to full champion. That I'm fine with. That in that context, yeah, go for it. But to just dole them out willy-nilly, oh, this fighter's fighting, hey, here's an interim title. It's like, what? Really? And your champion is fighting fit. Fighting fit. To me, that's just silly. And it just screams sanction fees. That's it. I wonder if you removed all these regional titles, these tricky titles, how many fights would A, be 12 rounders? And how many fights would even have titles on the line? Very few, because a lot of the major sanctioned body kind of tricky titles, like the WBC Gold or the Intercontinental, stuff like that, most of them are fought in 12-round sanctioned fights. If you took if you took those titles out, a lot of these fights would only be 10 rounders in around that. So look, it's just silly as far as I'm concerned with all this, belts being thrown around here, there, and everywhere. They need to just calm it down. They really do. Eddie Hearn has actually hinted that Conor Benn, should he get past Adrian Granados, we all think he will. We all think he will. It will be him. Excuse me. It'll be him versus potentially Adrian Broner next. They want to do Adrian Broner. Now, Adrian Broner at this stage in his career is, as far as I'm concerned, beyond finished. Beyond washed up. His last fight was an absolute train wreck of a performance. And even going back as 4 years ago when he fought Granados, I thought Granados won that fight. It was very competitive. I think Broner has seen much better days. And Eddie Hearn is going along the route of he's basically going on the route of names but not risks. No 50-50 fights for Conor Benn. Faded names that on paper look good but in reality ain't. That's the route he's going down with Conor Benn. He is trying to milk Conor Benn for all he's worth. At the end of the day, Conor Benn is what he is. He's improved immensely, but is he a top prospect in the welterweight division? I don't believe so, personally. Would I pick him? Think like this, right? How long are you going to have him feeding on these guys with names before eventually, you have to put him in with someone? Could you imagine Conor Benn against Boots Ennis, Virgil Ortiz? That would not end well. It wouldn't end very long, and it would not end pretty. Even guys who are kind of fringe contenders like Kabalaskas, they wouldn't put him in with someone like that, obviously, but I wouldn't pick Conor Benn over Kabalaskas. No way. No way in hell. Alright, I've been talking the best part of, I can imagine, 20 minutes, and I want to get this up before 10 o'clock this evening, so I'm going to call it there. It's my review of the week in a nutshell. Let me know your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you could, smash the like button. Subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. Hope you enjoyed. If you could, hit the notification bell as well. For now, lads and lassies, I'll talk to you. Peace.